Good evening, friends, and thank you very much for being here. I'd like to extend a especially warm welcome to those of my new colleagues, officer trainees who've joined us here today, and to see how all of you will perform. So please be on your best behavior. And for those of you who think that the numbers of the Foreign Service are less, I'd also like to tell you that this group of officer trainees is the largest in the history of the Foreign Service. So when you are, my understanding is 36. So 36 of them are going to watch all of you. All the best to all of you. Yes, that's your favorite pastime. But that said, I have here with me a colleague of mine, Joint Secretary Gulf, Mr. Mridul Kumar, who will be speaking to you all on one of the issues that I will make an announcement on. May I request that all of you switch off your telephones? Well, let me begin with the first of my two announcements, and that is about the visit of the Foreign Minister of Nicaragua, Mr. Samuel Santos Lopez, who is right now in Delhi. Even as we speak, he just completed his meeting with the External Affairs Minister, Sri Salman Khurshid. India and Nicaragua have a development cooperation partnership which is ongoing. We currently provide them with lines of credit of $10 million for setting up two electric substations in Nicaragua. They are working now to decide on an Indian supplier for this. In addition, in 2009, we had set up an IT center, which is very popular there. 15 Nicaraguan students avail of ITech scholarships. Nicaragua is one of those which has supported India for the permanent membership of the Security Council, and this was reiterated today by the visiting minister. Our bilateral trade is very small by any standards. It's only about $60 million, which is heavily weighted in favor of India. During the visit, the Nicaraguan foreign minister also briefed the External Affairs Minister of a proposal that they are now working on, something called the Nicaragua Canal. We understand that this is on the lines of the Panama Canal. They are working on it. And by 2014, they will have a detailed project report. He did brief the External Affairs Minister about the outlines of this and wanted support from the Indian business community. I understand he is also meeting businessmen in this context. That's item number one. Item number two is the visit of the Iraqi Prime Minister to India tomorrow. Mr. Nouri al-Maliki, the Prime Minister of Iraq, will be visiting India from 22nd to 25th of August. This is at the invitation of our Prime Minister. Of course, as is usual, he will be accompanied by a high-level delegation, including several ministers and captains of Iraqi industry. For those of you who are interested in history, I'd like to say that this is the first high-level visit since 1975. And that visit was undertaken by Mrs. Indira Gandhi when she was Prime Minister. During the visit, as is normal, he will have meetings with the Prime Minister, both in restricted session as well as delegation-level talks. Prime Minister will also hold a banquet for him. He will call on the President and meet the Vice President, External Affairs Minister Sri Salman Khurshid, and the leader of the opposition will call on him. My understanding also is that that he will address a business luncheon organized by ASSOCHAM, FICCI, CII, and ASSOCHAM, all combined. Beyond Delhi, he is also visiting Agra and Mumbai. As you all know, that Iraq has now emerged as the second largest exporter of crude to India. We have approximately a bilateral trade of $21 billion. This includes both-way trade. We are also working towards moving beyond a buyer-seller relationship with Iraq. And
as Joint Secretary XP mentioned, that the visit is taking place at the head of government level. The visit is taking place after 38 long years. There have been other high-level visits also, but at the head of government level, I think this is one thing we were waiting for quite a long period. You are aware, friends, that India-Iraq relationship has been civilizational. In fact, the pearls of Basra are known to every household in India. The Najaf and Karbala, they are the holy sites for a large population of Muslims living in our country, as also our friends, our Muslim brothers in the rest of the Shia world. This visit is an extremely important visit, not only because it's taking place after a long time, but also because the visit is taking place in a new democratic setup in Iraq. You are aware that in 2005, Iraq became a democracy with the successful holding of the elections. And our distinguished visitor, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, he took over the prime ministership in May 2006. He is one of those leaders in Iraq who has been extremely keen in developing this partnership with India. Our relationship has been very strong all through the history, but because of reasons beyond, you are aware of it, our control, including the long impending security situation, the Iraq-Iran wars, the Gulf War, etc., there was a little bit of hiatus in our relationship. But believe me, the hiatus didn't mean that the goodwill also ebbed. The goodwill remained. And the example of that goodwill was that despite of the very difficult security situations even prevailing in Iraq since 2005 onwards, there have been visitors from Iraq coming to India on a regular basis. In fact, their current Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Sharif, who is now looking after the most important energy affairs, and energy, I must tell you, that comprise of 90% of Iraq's GDP, was very recently in Mumbai for an IISS conference, and he gave a beautiful speech and he addressed our business people. So there has been a long-standing engagement with Iraq. Now, this relationship which got into this hiatus because of reasons, as I mentioned to you, beyond our control, both parties decided that we must build upon the goodwill and take our relationship much further. And as I mentioned, PM Maliki was extremely keen. He has expressed his desire that he would like to visit India, and he mentioned it to our ambassador in as early as December last year. And we said that we will be more than happy to have him in India, and his visit is in that background of his desire to come here. We took our External Affairs Minister in May this year, June this year, on 19th and 20th of June, and that was a path-breaking visit. In fact, during the visit, he met the entire Iraqi leadership. This included the Prime Minister Maliki himself, the Deputy Prime Minister Shahristani. He met the Council of Representative President, who is the counterpart of Speaker Lok Sabha. I must mention to you that Iraq is a federal structure with the polity divided between the various sectarian groups. The Prime Minister is from Shia group. The Council of Representative President is from Sunni group. And we have got the President who is from the Kurdish group. So there is a good balance of power sharing within the country. And our Foreign Minister, when he went there, he had the chance to meet with the entire cross-section of political leadership there. He was received with enormous warmth. And it is there when we realized that although our relationship has gone much further in terms of our trade relationship, but there was a need for us to further strengthen it through exchange of political dialogue and regular visits. And when we went there, we decided that we should hold the Joint Commission meeting as early as possible. The previous Joint Commission meeting was held in 2007 in New Delhi. And obviously, because of certain reasons, the committee could not meet. Then we decided that before Prime Minister Maliki comes to India, we should make enough preparations for his visit. And we realized that Joint Commission meeting could be an extremely useful institutional framework for us to develop our work to have a successful visit. And we had Dr. Virappa Moili, our Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, visiting there. He was accompanied by an extremely important, very high-level official delegation comprising 25 people. And the visit took place in almost 20 days from the visit of our External Affairs Minister. So you can imagine the kind of warmth and the kind of desire the Iraqis have in terms of having our people going there and exchanging political dialogue. This Joint Commission meeting identified a lot of areas, including the energy sector. And I am very glad to mention to you that they prepared the necessary groundwork, and there is an agreement on energy cooperation that has been worked out in a record period of less than a month. And both sides worked overnight to make sure that this agreement was agreed upon. And we are expecting that during the forthcoming visit of Prime Minister Maliki, this agreement could be signed. Now, in terms of giving you a kind of picture about the emerging relationship, in 2006-2007, our bilateral trade was to the tune of $5 billion. It has now moved in the last 6 years to $21 billion. Iraq is among the first 10 trading partners of India. Iraq is the second largest energy supplier for India. More than almost $20 billion of our oil comes from Iraq. 12.9% of our total oil import is from Iraq. So obviously, Iraq's value in terms of our energy security environment cannot be discounted. More than that, we are looking forward to, as Joint Secretary XP mentioned, we are looking forward to changing this relationship, moving this relationship on from a buyer-seller relationship to a much broad-based relationship. That includes joint ventures in petrochemicals, that include oil exploration, that includes petrochemicals, plants, that include fertilizers. We are also looking at several other areas which have been jointly identified in the Joint Commission meeting. There is this huge requirement of Iraqis. You are aware that Iraq has two great rivers, Tigris and Euphrates. But the 20-25 years of uncertainty, wars, have destroyed the entire water infrastructure there. And the country is now obliged to import a lot of food items from abroad, including from Turkey, from Syria, and from India. Now what they have asked for is that they would like us to cooperate in the water resource management so that they can again become that cradle of civilization. Iraq, the name of Iraq by itself is fertile land. So the land is very fertile, but the unfortunate part is the water resources have been completely devastated. And they have brought their hands forward to us, saying that we would like to cooperate in this extraordinarily important field for them. And I must also mention to you that an agreement is also finalized in the water resource management sector, and we are expecting that during the forthcoming visit, this agreement will also be signed. Now you are looking at a relationship which is going very fast, and we don't want it to be a one-way traffic. You friends are aware that Iraq has been one of the great friends of India in the Middle East world, traditionally. Our companies have been the biggest project exporters in Iraq. In fact, some of our big companies, including Ircon, etc., became Ircon because of their projects in Iraq. And what we are planning to do, and what we are both striving together to do, is to ensure that that status that India had in early 70s is brought back to us. And what we are doing now is that the oil that we are importing from them, we can do the reverse traffic for them also by building their devastated infrastructure, all kind of it, including power sector, the roads, transportation, telecommunications, you name it. The country requires Indian support, and when the Joint Commission meeting took place, and before that when the External Affairs Minister went there, we both assured them that Indian companies and the Indian government are extremely keen, and they are desirous of ensuring that the status that we had earlier with regard to project support will come back to us again. And with these words, I would like to thank you for your patient hearing, and you are most welcome to ask me any questions, any queries that you have on this regard.
Before I give the floor for questions, I think all of you know the ground rules, but let me repeat. One question. If anyone asks more than one question, we decide which of those questions will be answered. Right, Mr. Venkatnarayan.
Mr. Kumar, the last time I was in Baghdad, I went to the Oberoi Hotel and I found the menu, which was printed when the Oberois were controlling it. Then subsequently I spoke to Vicky Oberoi. I said, that hotel is yours. Are you going to stake a claim to it? Then I can't. At that time, we didn't do it. I mean, are we going to make a claim to get the hotel back? Number one. Acha, okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which year was that?
Which year was this?
Okay, so you're talking long back in history. Yeah. I must tell you that when I went with External Affairs Minister this year, we stayed in the same hotel. It's a beautiful property. Obviously, it was one of the prime properties in early 70s. I was told that this was among the first 10 best properties in the world. So obviously, this is something that we all cherish, and the contribution of Oberois and some of our other colleagues, companies, made in Iraq's development as a great nation at that time was because of these projects. You are also aware that that hotel now lies in the green zone. So I don't know whether Oberois will like to take it back because they will find it very difficult to operate because of its presence in the green zone.
Yes, sir. Sir, you said both sides will sign energy cooperation during the visit. So would you elaborate part of the broad contents of that agreement?
Yes.
No, just a minute. I think we've told you about the thing, and it's not usual practice to tell you about all the details in advance. He's given you ideas of where these two are, these agreements, and I think we should leave it till once they are signed. We will, of course, provide you those details when they are signed. So for the present, I think he's given you enough. Yes, Pranay.
You mentioned a lot of areas where India can invest. What is our assessment of the security situation there? Because it is related directly to that kind of an investment.
When you are talking about the security situation, I think obviously everybody, including our colleagues from media, are aware of what is happening in Iraq. But when you go to a friendly country and you are given assurance, as we were given assurance when we went with the External Affairs Minister, the kind of security provided to our delegation was extraordinary. Joint Secretary XP was also present there at that point in time. And we were treated more like head of state with 10 bulletproof cars given to our delegation. So I'm sure that when Iraq is seeking investments from other countries, including India, and when India is looking at regaining that status of project exporters, these considerations will be taken into account by both our business leadership as well as by the political leadership of Iraq, which is willing to have those investments coming into Iraq.
Sandeep.
Sir, during Saddam's time, India was offered a stake in an oil well. Has India managed to retrieve that, or it has gone the way of the Libyan Syria positions?
I must mention to you that we are dealing with a completely new setup in Iraq. And I would restrict my answers to dealing with the new setup in Iraq. The leadership is very keen to develop this partnership from a buyer-seller partnership to a much broad-based partnership. In fact, when the External Affairs Minister went to Baghdad in June, and when Deputy Prime Minister, he met Deputy Prime Minister Mr. Sharistani, who deals with the energy affairs. And when Deputy Prime Minister Sharistani came to India just a few days back in Mumbai, he said one simple word, and that struck me. He said that Iraq wants to be a reliable partner for India in energy sector. So I think that sums up the entire approach that the new Iraqi leadership has in terms of building that relationship with India.
Indrani?
You talked about joint ventures with Indian companies, especially in the energy sector. Have you spoken to the Indian industry and have they expressed an interest? Also, are you looking at the...
As I mentioned again when I was speaking about the security situation, the perceived security situation in Iraq and whether my investment is secure in a country with such fragile security environment, I must mention to you that again these decisions are made based on your perception of outcome that your investment would have. And obviously you will discount to some extent, within the framework of your cost analysis, that security aspect also. Obviously, our companies are extremely interested. I must mention to you one small example. There is this company called Mokul Shriram, joint venture. And with the 30 years long war devastation, the infrastructure is gone to the extent that even the sewerage and those systems have completely gutted down. So these people have got $230 million of project, which is very labor intensive, because when you are cleaning up severages, you require a lot of manpower. And when your companies are working in cities like Basra, which is the outlet of the entire Iraqi oil, I think it speaks volumes about the way people look at the security situation there again. At the same time, I also must mention to you a slight geography of Iraq, and I think that will put things in perspective. We've got 3 regions of Iraq. The northernmost part, which is the Kurdistan region. Then you've got the central belt, which is Shia-Sunni mixed belt, which includes regions like Baghdad, etc. And then you have the bottom part where you have got plenty of oil. You have got the world's largest oil fields there, sitting in that area. They are called supergiant oil fields. Now this area, the topmost area of Kurdistan, and the bottom area where you have got a lot of oil, they are reasonably much more stable as compared to the central area, which is Shia-Sunni mix area. So I think, again, you have to keep those factors into account, and I'm talking about on account of the business perceptions, when you are making those business deals and announcements.
Ranjit?
How many Indian workers should be in Iraq right now? Because a few years ago, an advisory was issued to all the Indians, if they go there, they are on their own risk.
Yes, you are right that an advisory was issued some time ago, but this advisory has again been revoked 2 years back. And I must mention to you that the number of Indian workers are increasing in Iraq. As I again just now mentioned, that Kurdistan region is one place which is reasonably more stable. And almost 30% of Iraq's total proven oil reserves are in Kurdish region. So we have got a lot of Indian workers, white-collar job clients also, now basing their operations through various companies based out of there. These companies may be international companies, they may not be Indian companies altogether, but we have a sizable population of Indians working in Iraq. It's the number may be something between 10,000 to 12,000.
Rajiv?
But this is one question with 2 clauses.
You ask any
Okay,
question
listen to the
at your
question.
own risk.
Listen to the question. Clause 1. How does India's triangular relationship with Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia plays out vis-a-vis Iraq?
Thank you.
Clause 2. Please listen to this.
Please. You are a senior journalist and you understand me very well.
Should I? Yeah. We never, from Indian perspective, look at relationship in triangular manner. I think we must understand that when we are dealing with foreign governments, foreign countries, the relationships are based on bilateral aspect. And as far as you are talking about 3 major providers of energy security to us, our relationship is on the basis of our bilateral relationship with them. Obviously, with regard to Saudi Arabia, you are aware that in 2006, the historic visit of King Abdullah started the entire process of strengthening our relationship, and in less than 7 years, our relationship is at a completely different level now. With Iran, again, it's a very, very friendly country, and you are aware of the special dispensation Iranian government has provided with regard to oil. In terms of Iraq, I have given you detailed explanation of where they are looking at and how they are looking at India. So we, from Indian perspective, would like to deal with these countries not in a triangular or a quadrilateral manner, but in a straight, simple, straightforward line.
Anyone else? Yes, sorry.
In connection with the earlier question, what is the latest on the Indian ship that was carrying, and do you foresee such problems again?
Please, we will answer that question. We are now dealing with India, Iraq, and once that's finished, as is usual, I will open the floor for any other questions, and we will answer all those questions. Anyone? Yes. Here.
Decades ago, India was in a position to give a lot when it came to skill development to Iraq. Is there a idea of looking at that? Is there a request from their side for any such thing? In which fields?
I must mention to you that while we are talking about going ahead with regard to broad basing our relationship with Iraq, in terms of capacity building, in terms of human resource development, we have never closed our doors on Iraqis. At present, we have offered them 150 ITEC slots, which they take completely. There are 50 scholarships offered by ICCR on postgraduate studies also. There are 10,000 Iraqi students in postgraduate studies all over the country, 10,000. And I think some of the Western countries, the Indian students might not be in that kind of a number. So you're talking about a massive relationship in terms of capacity building. Another sector I thought, because you have not asked, I thought I should mention to you, is that for Iraqis, India has become an extremely important Medicare center. And almost 200 and 250 medical visas are issued by our mission in Baghdad on a daily basis for Iraqis to come and get treated here in our country.
Anyone else on Iraq? When the rest of all of you are supposed to be on your best behavior today. I think if that is so.
Yes.
Okay. So we will now open the floor for any other questions that you will want to ask. Yes, Maha. Please.
Sir, has India taken up with China the issue of incursions in Arunachal Pradesh?
Maha, we do not take up non-events in diplomatic practice. Yes. Nidhi.
Sorry, a follow-up question to that. Are you saying that the incursion in Arunachal Pradesh never happened?
I mentioned to you in diplomatic terms. What has happened or not happened is, as I have always said, for those sentinels of our borders to answer. And they know the factual position on this, and I think they've answered that. There has been a rebuttal by the army on this, and we do not want to go beyond that. And consequent to that, obviously, if that's what the position was, we do not focus on non-events in diplomatic practice. Next. Yes. Smita.
Is there a possibility of the Prime Minister undertaking a bilateral visit to Sri Lanka ahead of Chogam, because there are reports that if he does not participate, it would be considered a massive snub by Colombo?
I don't know where you're getting those reports from. Usually when we finalize these visits, we will announce them well in advance. At this stage, I have no idea of a visit of the sort that you are mentioning about. Yes, one by one. Gautam.
Sir, yesterday the India-China Foreign Secretaries meeting, the press release said that the prospect and the potentiality of BCIM economic corridor was also figured. So can you explain a little or elaborate on this issue? What would be the next course of action?
Yes. As you're aware, we have been suggesting that there should be investment from China in Indian infrastructure. One of the areas that have been identified is possible industrial parks. Some of you have previously reported that they could be located in Uttar Pradesh. But apart from that, there are several other options available. These include Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Karnataka. So we have 5 options on the table on this proposal. We will take it based on which of these options are most suitable and take the process forward in consultation with the concerned state governments. Yes, Dr. Akhilesh Suman.
Sir, Afghan Vice President is here in India, and we could hear nothing from you. Please, some details.
Well, you're right that the Vice President of Afghanistan, Mr. Karim Khalili, is here. We did issue a press release on that, and therefore I did not want to mention. But now that you've mentioned, we will respond to it. He is the 2nd Vice President of Afghanistan. This is his first official visit to India. We see this as our continuing engagement with all stakeholders in Afghanistan. As you are aware, President Karzai was here earlier this year on a visit to the lovely university. Prior to that, he was last year here in 2012 on a state visit. Before that, the first vice president was on a state visit in 2011. So you would know that our relationship with Afghanistan is expansive. It involves all sections of Afghan community, and we will continue that engagement. As far as the visit here is concerned, we will, of course, engage on a variety of issues. And these issues include our economic engagement with Afghanistan, our development partnership with Afghanistan, and of course, as you are aware, we have a strategic partnership, and elements of that strategic partnership will also figure in the discussions. Yes, sir, just one by one. I'll answer everyone, as long as it's one.
There is a IB input that Pakistani intelligence agency ISI is using Sri Lankan territory to pump terrorists in India, especially in South India, for attacks. Will India take this matter to Sri Lanka?
I think you're new here. I do not comment on speculative reports which you attribute to intelligence sources. I can only respond to issues of a diplomatic nature and not to speculative reports which you think are attributed to Indian intelligence or anyone else. Yes, Vishal.
So has there been any further discussion on the proposed meeting between Prime Ministers Manmohan Singh and Nawaz Sharif in New York next month?
My understanding is that we have said last time that, for dialogue to take place, there needs to be a conducive atmosphere. And certainly an environment in which terrorism or violence is perpetrated against India is not the right type of environment for this. As far as any specific meeting that you're talking about, I think I had mentioned it last time that the dates that were being indicated were in the last week of September. And we look and examine every situation as it evolves. We expect Pakistan to abide by its publicly stated commitment not to allow its territory for violence or terrorism, or territories under its control for violence or terrorism against India. For us, this is a key priority, and we will see how things evolve on that priority. Yes? I think there was a young lady there who wanted to know on Iran. Yes, please.
The Indian ship that was carrying Iraqi crude that's been held by Iranian authorities, what is the latest on that? And do we foresee such troubles again in the future?
I'm not a soothsayer, but nor am I a sage on a stage, so I can't say what's going to happen in the future. But that said, I'll answer the question, because only the part of what will happen in the future I can't. Pardon? No, I'm answering what is here and now. As regards this incident regarding an Indian ship, we have been in touch constantly with Iran on this issue. Despite intensive discussions, we have not yet made any progress. The matter is being pursued vigorously by our embassy in Tehran, and I would like to seek your patience as we work towards a successful outcome in a delicate situation. Your chance is over, sir. Yes, Niloa.
Is the land boundary agreement going to be placed in Parliament, and is the government seriously pursuing that now?
I think you are aware of the developments in Parliament recently. My understanding is that the External Affairs Minister is in touch with various political parties on this, and based on the outcome of his discussions and consultations, the intention is to try and see if we can achieve a domestic consensus which will enable passage of this important legislation which we as India are committed to. Yes, Mauricio.
In many media today appeared the news related always with the 4 Italian Marines who apparently do not want to come to India to testify. But that news doesn't give any information about a diplomatic dimension of the issue. Can you tell us what are the developments also from your point of view, please?
Thank you, Mauricio. You have been following this issue, so you are well aware. Let me try and explain to you what the situation is. The case, as you know, is being handled by the National Investigation Agency, which had requested that they be allowed to have the witness, have the presence of these 4 Italian Marines as witnesses in the case. Now, they had asked this after completion of examination of several witnesses. Let me relate to you what has happened, and then we will take up where we are on this. What has happened is all Indian witnesses have been examined. All 6 members of the crew of that ship have been examined. These include 2 Italian witnesses. Also, the 2 Marines who are here have been examined. So all these witnesses have been examined during the course of time, during the last month and this month. That leaves 4 witnesses who were Marines on that ship. Now, the Indian government, based on the request of the NIA, had asked the Italian government for permission that these witnesses be examined here. We've been informed by the Italian government that these 4 Marines are on sensitive postings and it is difficult to relieve them at this stage to come over to India and depose as witnesses. Instead, they've suggested various alternatives. Those alternatives are A, perhaps a video conference. Also, the possibility of an investigative officer from India visiting Italy. And finally, also as an option is that questions could be given in writing and these could be responded to in writing, which could be admitted in a court. Now, these 3 options are not precluded by the court judgment which was previously given, because the court judgment, and let me read for you what the operative part of that court judgment said. After it deals with the assurance given by the Italian government, etc., it says, such assurance shall, however, not affect the right of the above 4 Marines to challenge such summons, notice issued by any court or investigating officer or any lawful authority before a competent court of India. So what is happening is envisaged in the court judgment that if they feel that it was not possible, they could come back and respond to it. Now that they've responded to it, what we've done is we've sought through the NIA has sought the advice of the legally competent authorities, that is those in the Ministry of Law and our additional Solicitor General. So as far as we are concerned, this is where it is. This is what, the court case has moved ahead. There has been substantial progress in examining the witnesses, and we are now in the phase where this last part of the jigsaw puzzle has to fit in. They have given a response. We understand the legal rationale for what they have indicated, and we are now considering this through our legal counsels so that we have a coherent and considered view on this matter to take it forward. As you are aware, this is a case which is carefully calibrated and has been followed up both by Italy and our own Minister of External Affairs on a regular basis. So let me assure you that we are trying to do our best in this case and to try to take it forward. Yes, Parul.
Has Denmark agreed to facilitate the return of Kim Davy?
Yes, I keep hearing suddenly some stories, but and since there was this story which came up yesterday, let me try and put for you where we are on that situation. As far as we in India concerned, we consider Kim Devi as a fugitive from justice. Now, if he is a fugitive from justice, we feel that he must be brought to justice for his self-professed role. He has himself said what his role was in the Purulia arms dropping. And if that is the role, he needs to be brought to justice for that role. Our efforts with the government of Denmark have not yet been successful. We have a new ambassador who's recently gone to Denmark, and he is in the process of having his initial meetings. And we intend to continue to insist that a way forward needs to be found on this issue. That's where we are on the matter of Kim Devi. I hope I've clarified both our position as well as where we are. Anyone else? Yes, Geeta?
There's another organization in Madrasa that has been put under the terror list of the United States of America, having contacts with Lashkar eToiba and the Jaish. Any comments on that?
If I say we are not surprised by it, I suppose you would not think that is unusual, because this merely underscores our long-held position that there exists a terrorist network and support framework in that region that needs to be targeted and dismantled. Everybody has finished their first question. Thank you very much.